What if you could provide a stock request application within your organization using Power Apps and database source data with Microsoft List? So I'm showing you now the final finished product, which is very basic, but very powerful. You have here an interface with Power App that shows that you can select a requester, whoever is your employee within the organization. You can select a warehouse location. For each of the warehouse location, the application will show you what are the items available in stock. And from there, you can select what item you want to request to be released from your house or distributed or transported to your final location. So here, for instance, I want to add in my cart some buckets and I want to put some specific quantities in which if the quantity is high, I can also manually type the number here and adjust if needed with the arrows. And I can also add another item from my warehouse that I want to also provide as quantity 10. And once I do that, the last point is basically to submit. By submitting, you have a success message, and this will normally trigger different things, and this application will actually trigger the email with the content that has been requested to be released to the relevant storekeepers from the warehouse location that was selected. So this would normally be different people in different locations, and you will receive all details by email, and you can start preparing your goods and further put them ready for dispatch. So it's a very basic application, but very powerful. And I'm going to explain you in the next episode how to build this step by step, very simply, and with a functional workflow. We're going to start building an application that you can use on your mobile device using Power Apps that is part of Office 365 applications. So the mobile app that we will build today will be done in 3 episodes. Episode number 1, how to build the data source that will be connected to your mobile application. Episode number 2, how we build the Canva or the layout of your application in Power Apps. And episode number 3, how we built the Power automation that will notify the different people that needs to receive notification. So the application we're going to build today is a basic logistics or stock request application, which will allow the user to select who he is, to select one of the warehouse locations where items are stored, and further select the items and the quantity that they request to be released from the warehouse. So as a starting point, we need first to build the data source. And as these applications that I offer do not require additional licenses, we are not going to use Power App premium licenses or premium connectors, which normally would be required if your data source would be based on what we call Dataverse tables. In our case, we will use Microsoft Lists with different data sources. So in my application, I want 3 tables. One is the employee table, where we will have the name of the employee and the position. And you can again build it with additional fields if you want. But for this application, that will be sufficient to start with. The second table will be the list of the warehouse locations that will show basically on a drop down where do you want that warehouse, the items that you want to release from the warehouse. The third list will be the actual stock list, so everything you have in all the warehouses. And the last one will be to save the data submitted by the application. Will be 2 more tables. One is the table that will save all the requests made. And the second one will be the list of items per request that was made. It's easier to do it that way because you will link both tables with the VLOOKUP or lookup ID so that you can have the individual records for each of the items for the same ID, and in this case for the same request. So let's start with the employee list. So here I'm on Microsoft List again. So I will create a list. And you remember when we built the travel request, we were starting from a form. In our case, I will manually build it, but you can also create a list from a CSV file or an Excel file. So let's say you already have the list of employees on Excel. You could import that Excel file to create your list and then map the field or the columns from your Excel to match with the columns from your list. In my case, I will start very quickly with a manual list. So here it will be employees. So I basically create the table, create. So you remember in Microsoft List by default, it provides a default title. So I will actually keep that one by default, which will be my employee person name. And I will just add the new column, which is a text column, which is the position within the organization. So here I will put text next, and I will call it position, which is sufficient. Now, what I need is to create, so we will put it as required, that is required information. So I will create some records for the sake of this application. So add new item. So title will be my name. Okay. And position, it's let's say CEO or head of logistics, whatever it is that you have in your organization. Okay, then we will create another one, which will be employee 2 and position, sorry, employee 2 and position will be finance manager. Save. Then we create another one, will be employee 3. We will call it admin manager, and that will be enough. 3 records. Now we go back to Microsoft List. We will create now the warehouse locations. So warehouse locations will be a new table. So again, I create a list manually, which I will call warehouse locations. Create. And here I will just keep title, as the initial column. I don't need to rename it because in the application we will have labels of the dropdown that will have the right name, and we'll just link that dropdown to the title column of that list. So let's add a few locations. So we can put here again a warehouse in Paris, another warehouse in London, another warehouse in Rome, another warehouse in, let's say, Washington. Why not? Let's move across the Atlantic Ocean, Washington, and so on and so on. Good. Now let's go for the third table, which is basically my stock list. So this will be stock. So I create again the list from scratch. And as I explained before, you may have another tool, another application that has already the information about what you have in stock across your organization in different locations. And in this case, and this would be more advanced, if you have an API or if the data is easily extractable that you can export in Excel, then you would basically do a manual export on a weekly basis of whatever you have in stock in a SharePoint Excel list, and you will basically use and import the Excel list as a data source for the Power App application. So there's many ways to do that. Now today we're going to do it through a list, and this is going to be my stock list. So by default, the title will be basically the item name. So I need to add the columns will be the warehouse location. So here I need to go and say it's a lookup. Next, now he's asking me to, so this will be warehouse location. So it's important to avoid space because it will be sometimes a bit tricky when you work in Power App when you do need to do some minimal coding such as clicking the submit button to make sure that it pulls the data correctly from all the tables. So the lookup here will be from the warehouse location and title. So very simple. And in this case, yes, it's the title, more save. So now every time something will be submitted, will be automatically linked to the other table. Now, after the warehouse location, we have nothing else to put. Now I want to create a new table, which is the requests. So this will be basically a new table we will call requests, a new list, requests. Here in that request, we will have. So now I need to create a new column. I cannot use title because I need to do a lookup with the employee column, title column. So here I will have here select the lookup up. So the name of the column will be requester, and the lookup will be basically into the employee table. So you can do the lookup, yes, with the title will be now because that will be the employee name. And that's very simple. Now we need to put an additional one, which is the request date, because we will need that to be captured from the application. So I will only put the date and not the time. So here it says including time, no. So the rest is correct. So here is request date. So again, no space. That's it. You can make sure that this is also a required column. So there should always be one value there. After that, we just need to do the warehouse location because that's what I want to capture in the request table. So this is going to be a lookup again, which will be coming from my other table, which is warehouse location. So lookup, I take that from warehouse location and title, and it's good to go. So that's enough for this one. And the last one, it's the requested items table or list, which will be linked to with a lookup to the request table. So here, new table again or new list. This one will be requested items. Create. Now, by default, the item. So this will be again another column, which will be the item column, and it has to be in the lookup stock. So here, lookup to, so this is item. Okay, lookup to the stock table, and into the stock table, we take the title, which will be the description. Correct. Now the quantity will be a manual table, which will be a number. So here it will be a number. We call it quantity. So now here it's very important to also decide if you want that number to be with decimals or not. The reason I ask is because you may have items in stock that you want to request, 1.5 of something, whether it's kilo or grams and so on. So this we can set it up later, but I would here put a 2 decimal value just to be on the safe side. And just again, this information should be mandatory. Actually, this is not important because it will be saved regardless. And after the quantity, we need to add another column to link it with the request. So it's going to be a lookup again, which will be basically the request ID. So I will call it here request. And this will be a lookup, which should go to the request, and there should be here an ID table. That's it, ID from the request table. So that will basically show here in that list the request, which will be the ID from the request table. Sorry, apologies. the quantity and the item. So if, for instance, a requester made multiple items request in one request, you will see here request ID 1111 on multiple lines with each item for the same request. And this will be helpful when we go to the last part of this application, which is creating a Power BI dashboard so that people will have an overview on your warehouse, the workload of your warehouse, because the dashboard will show how many requests are made, by who, how many items are requested. So this dashboard can serve different purpose. The first one is understanding the workload on your warehouse location. So how many requests are made, which shows a bit the workload on your employees and your storekeepers. And the second one, it can help you also to anticipate and do some better forecasts on items, on replenishment of stock items. So if you see that over 1 month or a quarter, 3 months, that the same item is requested for multiple quantities, it's a trigger for you to ensure that when you place a request to procure something, to replenish your stock, you can request the right quantity so that you have a better forecasting of your needs in the warehouse. So this is the end of the first part. And it was important to spend time here on building correctly the data source and the relationship between the different tables or the list, because that will have an impact on how the application will work later on. That's it for episode number 1. See you on the next episode. Thank you.